What's up, everybody? It's Reese, and I'm here with Hakeem and Jason, and we're the Diversified gentlemen. And today we have the pleasure of having our guest, Topaz, who is a black belt in jiu-jitsu and a military veteran, combat vet. And we're just so happy to have him because, you know, we've been following his platform. He has a podcast as well. He focuses on martial arts and mental health. And basically, I just set the stage, so I'll let you take it from there, Topaz.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I like to tell people, you know, when they ask generally about who I am and what I do, I always start with Blaze Genius and Lark. So I consider myself a people person. I love connecting with people and feeding off social energy. And I say I'm a Lark because I'm a morning person. You know, that Army has instilled in me that early morning up, but I try to get to bed early. So those are the two big things. Right now, I'm in a process of transitioning from the military. By trade, I'm a flow coach, so that's peak performance. If you guys aren't familiar with flow, it's a state of consciousness where you feel your best and perform your best. So we're using that to help transitioning service members or service members beyond transition find their second mountain. I tell people it's been eulogy virtues, vice resume virtues. So legacy is greater than currency. We want to do things and build you up so that you lead a life towards enriching other people's lives and society, right? Vice strict focus on material gains and things of that nature. So we can get into that a little bit.
I'm sorry, and that's your job in the military?
No, this is what I'm doing now.
I'm about to say the same thing.
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
oh, it's like, that's crazy.
Wait, the Army's doing that? The Air Force needs to catch up.
Everyone's better do something.
By military trade, I'm a 35 Zulu right now. So that's military intelligence. So with Intel, once you reach E9, all of the MOSs converge. So originally I'm a linguist by trade in the military. And then, like I said, when you reach E9, you all converge as 35 Zulu.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So you are a sergeant major in the Army?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay. Man, so sergeant major, black belt,
Linguist.
Yeah, man.
Intelligence.
You doing your thing.
Hey, diversified gentleman. That's what he is.
You know, the biggest piece with all that though is it just going back to being a Blaze Genius. It really gives me the opportunity to connect with a wide kind of breadth of people, right? And maybe we get into this a little bit later, but it's really helped me to see in all those different domains the lack of diversity, the lack of people of color in military intelligence, the lack of people of color in the E9 level, the 06 and above level, in jiu-jitsu as a whole, right? So people of color are still, I would say, boxers, right? Boxing is what our parents grew up on. Boxing is what is taught to us as young kids. And really maybe karate, right? When you had the old karate flicks back in the day, you know, so you'll have some people of color doing karate. So jiu-jitsu is really not big in our community. So working on that as well. And the same thing with all the other things I'm into, you know.
Nice.
Let's talk about that real quick. So we hear that a lot about things that we're not involved in, people of color. From your experience, what do you think that is? Like, why are we at the higher echelons of doing these things or different things that are unique, that are outside of our traditional everyday culture?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I wrestle with that almost daily because I talk to a lot of people. And one thing I missed is I have a nonprofit that's focused on mental health, right? Mm. So it's another area where it's very difficult to reach people of color, you know. But I don't know. I haven't nailed it down. But from the military perspective, right, a large part of my service has been in the special operations community, another community where you don't find a lot of people of color. Once again, right? Why that is, I don't know. And I'm still working to figure that out. It's a great question.
Can you start with your story? Just give some background from, like, you know, your upbringing to the man you are now today.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm from New Jersey originally. Grew up in New Jersey. Nothing really spectacular, you know, a normal life. I actually grew up in a town that was very diversified. So I'm from the about 30 minutes west of the Jersey Shore. So I don't know if you guys ever seen the TV show that was on all the time, the Jersey
Oh yeah.
Shore. I'm about 30 minutes west of there. So I spent a lot of time on the beach, you know, a lot of time sports. I'm a big soccer player, grew up playing soccer. I'm half Puerto Rican, so a lot of soccer. Family all play basketball, all play soccer, all play baseball. So very athletic family growing up. I had the choice between academics and soccer and going to college. And then I decided to go to the Army instead because I just felt like I wanted a different type of independence. Joining the National Guard actually. And then after I got home from training in the National Guard, I was like, no, I want to go active duty because going back home, it just didn't feel right. So went on active duty, spent some time overseas, and then I found an organization that I got into, and I spent a lot of time there, a long time there. So a lot of deployments. I found jujitsu along the way. An interesting story is I started jujitsu because I was doing Muay Thai, so kickboxing, and I had a bout of depression, and so I found jujitsu, and it kind of helped me out of that funk. So I stayed with it all along the way, and then I started what wasn't a certified nonprofit at the time. It was just like a unsponsored organization that I was running in my free time, helping with mental health, providing recreational activities to help people build a community, bring people together, share time together. And then I lost 2 friends to suicide within 45 days. And then after that happened, I decided, okay, now we need to make this an official nonprofit organization, 501c3, so that we can start raising money and giving back to the community on a larger scale. And that was about a little over a year ago.
Yeah, I battled with some of that as well. I had some work issues, and at the same time, you know, my mother passed away, and within a, you know, 4 to 6 month period, and you hear, especially in the military over the last decade, they've been really pumping mental health, suicide awareness, and you have no idea until you go through it. You know what I mean? And even once you hit it, you're not really sure. You know, you can't put your finger on it. What's wrong with you? Where you know, I remember going to the PCM, and now hindsight, when you go to the PCM, they ask you, you know, do you feel about harming yourself? Do you care about things? In the last, 30 days, do you want to do things that are pleasurable? And when you're in the, a sound mind, it's like, yeah, of course. You know what I'm saying? And then I remember going to a mental health session, and they asked you the same thing when I was battling it, and I was hesitant, like, how do I answer it? Like, I want to be honest, but then I don't want to be flagged and be put, and I'm medical, so it's, it's that almost that conflict of interest. The people that are seeing me and treating me, I work with day to day. So, I kind of fudged it, and then, it's funny too, when you're going through it, you don't really want help. You kind of just want to be left alone. You kind of want to be in the shadows, right? And then finally, just thankfully, I was able to push through. And then when you do, you're just a totally different person, and you see things totally different, and you're looking for signs. And when someone goes through something, even though they may not have a sign, like, that's traumatic. So, you may be overbearing with, seriously, if you need anything, because everyone's going to say, I'm okay. Yeah, you all right? Good. You know what I mean? Then you keep it moving. But I think certain people, you could tell when they've gone through something, they basically make sure that no one else basically feels that or tries to assist as much as possible. So can you relate to that, you think?
Yeah, I think you hit on the number one thing that we see, is one, because of the stigma associated with mental illness, and two, because of the concern with jobs, right? Especially in the area where I'm in the DMV. So of course you have, really the height of the defense industry with regards to, intelligence and things of that nature, right? So people don't like to talk about those things for fear of losing their job.
Yeah, that's security clearance. Yeah, that's security clearance.
Absolutely. So I'm a huge advocate of social interaction and of having that community, that support network. Jiu-jitsu provides that, although jiu-jitsu is hard, and we can talk about that later, but jiu-jitsu provides that because and this is why we do recreational activities, because what it does is exactly like you talked about, Reese, is like people are going to fudge the paperwork or tell the clinician or the doctor or whoever it is, I'm doing fine. But if you continuously put yourself in an environment with people who have shared experiences and similar experiences, the truth is going to come out, right? So if the four of us meet every week and play basketball, and Reese and I, every week we're talking about, man, I had, the worst headaches last night. I was so depressed last week. And then Hakeem is like, yo, I've been dealing with that too. All his paperwork ain't going to say that, but he sees it all the time. So he feels very comfortable. And then Reese and I look at each other and be like, yo, you just heard what he said? Like, he's never said that before. Now we turn around and we can pull him aside and have that conversation because he knows the trust is there, right? The shared experience is there, and we're all there for each other. So this is the importance to me of interpersonal relationships, social networks, community, tribe, whatever you want to label it as, having those ways, because that intermediary is going to be the real key to discovering the challenges. It's not going to be the clinician. It's not going to be the commander. It's not going to be the sergeant major, because you're not going to talk to those people.
We push positive, or not positive, but mental health awareness, right, in the military a lot. We push that a lot. And also in the civilian sector, I see it a lot as well, through commercials and all that. But everyday life, everyday conversation, outside of friends, it doesn't really happen. Like, is it taboo, or like, why do you feel that mental health is still such a sensitive topic?
I think it's a stigma. I think it's a stigma associated with it seeming to be a weakness, right? It is still considered a weakness. And if there is a positive that can come out of the COVID pandemic, it will be the reality that, post-traumatic stress is not limited to combat veterans, that people, that social distancing and isolation is going to have a heavy impact on mental health going forward. So people will see that it affects everyone, and I'll tell you, since I've been on Clubhouse, I've been on the veterans networks there, and you will get veterans in the room that will talk about everything in that room, because they know they're there with other veterans with shared experience. But I can tell you, if you pulled one of those out as a clinician and said, hey, tell me about what you're going through, you're not going to get that.
Yeah, I think Clubhouse is a safe place because, you're not on video. Granted, you can tie your IG to it, but you don't have to. So you can get on there. No one knows who you are. And like you said, you feel like you're in a safe space with people who's been through the same type of experiences versus that, I'll just say the everyday civilian who, may not have done that, right? And we all, to a certain extent, and, me and Jason, we're officers. So it seemed like, senior enlisted is the same thing where you get to a certain stature, and that's even more pressure because everyone's looking to you to have your stuff straight, right? And once you cross a certain rank, you're in the 1%, and not only you're the 1%, you're a man of color, right? So you can't you basically have to have that perfect image, and that's even more pressure when you're going through stuff, and your circle is even smaller because the lower rank you are when you first come in, you can go to anybody. You can go to your supervisor, that master sergeant, the first sergeant, have going through this, but when you hit a certain rank, it's on you. Like, I can't bring those issues to them. They're gonna look at me like, handle it, do what you know what you need to do. All of the resources out there, and plus you're leading the people. You need to set the example, and that's even just more compounded pressure on you. Not to even include the life things that everyone goes through, and it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, something that Topaz touched on that I really gravitated to was that tribal communal healing type of thing. We got to think about it this way. You think about gangs. You know, how do people join a gang? How can they do that? Is they got that shared common struggle, they got that shared common interest, and it's easy for them to gravitate to each other. Take that same model with mental health, like what you do. Instead of having them sit around in a circle, talk about their feelings, talk about what happened, you put them in a situation where they're doing an activity. Now they're relaxed around people that understand them, to go through the same thing. They're more likely to open up. And maybe that's where that healing begins, where somebody that talks like them, looks like them, says, hey, I did these things to get me out of this funk, or I did this. They're more likely to take that advice or take that guidance, rather than a commander or supervisor saying, yeah, I understand you got some problems and you go see a mental health provider. It's less likely they're going to do that, because first of all, you got that fear, you got that stigma, you got the career impact. You're going to be like, I'm not doing that. But if that gateway is different, where it comes from peers that you're in a social group with doing things, they're more likely to take that information on. So what you guys are doing is, I think, is revolutionary when you mentioned it, because that's not common, where you just don't do the whole, there's group settings, you know, you can do the circle, the powwow, get ready to around, but you do that social interaction when people have that same issues, and then it comes out slowly, and they're more likely to get that help they need later on. So I think we should go back to this tribal community healing. You know what I mean? You take those same things that we use for negatives, like the gang, I always put gangs in that, and put it to the same thing. Put it in our communities, people that are like-minded, that can have that discussion. And that's how it is, especially with the military. Like you all just said, you come from that background, you know certain lingo, you're gonna be able to relate. Take that same thing with mental health. If we do something like that, continue what you're doing, that's gonna be a key to healing, man.
The only thing about that is when you're speaking of people of color, especially men of color, we have to break down the stigma that mental health is a weakness versus a strength, showing that I am openly talking about my issues. That's a strength, right? It takes a lot for people to come out. We have to break that stigma. We have to break that label of, you know, when you're weak because you're suffering from depression. You're a man, you shouldn't be suffering from depression. We got to get out of that mind frame. I don't know how that's done. I guess you can just continue to talk about it, but until we get out of that stigma, I don't.
I think we're slowly getting there, though. I think the culture is slowly getting there. I think now you have, you know, rappers, that's all they talk about is, you know, their feelings. And then in the 90s, you could forget about it. No, you know what I mean? So now I think we're getting to that. And, you know, nothing happens, you know, with sexism, racism, like nothing happens overnight. But unfortunately, also in the military, to get promoted, you got to have that stellar record. You could have never been through anything. And sometimes it's just a vicious cycle, because you put people at the top who has this stellar record, and, you know, more than likely they're commanders, and they are, you know, from a background who I wouldn't say was privileged, but may not understand the issues that come up from coming up in certain environments. And just, you know, for instance, just being in a world where you serve in the military, and you may be a African-American male, still get pulled over by the cops just because you're driving while black. And guess what? The next day, you still got to put on that uniform, show up to work, smile, and act, you know, professional. And again, that's more compounded pressure, tension building in you. And if you don't have those leaders who can't sympathize or empathize with you, they're just like, you know, what's that person's issue? And I like that. So kind of what Topaz brought up with diversity, and at least in the Air Force, you know, our last Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force was an African-American male. He changed some things. And then following him was a female, Asian Pacific Islander female. Now she's, you know, the top tier enlisted in the Air Force. And now we have an African-American Chief of Staff. So that actually helps a bit.
Yeah, I want to go back to two things, if you guys don't mind, that Hakeem and Jason said earlier, because I think they really resonated with me, and two, and I think they're really important. First, you hit on how do we get more people of color to talk about mental health, right? And we'll talk about that one first. I think it's the the people that we look at as role models, if you want to call them that, or influencers, they need to speak up, because that's, whether we like it or not, right? Our kids, they're going to listen to us. They're not going to acknowledge that they're listening to us, even though it's going in the back of their mind. But that influencer, role model, whatever they want to categorize them as, that's who they're listening to, right? So you have a little bit of, let's take a guy like LeBron James that talks about it a little bit. So, okay, now it's resonating. Dak Prescott comes out and talks about his struggles, and he gets made fun of on ESPN, just shut up and play. Nobody cares about your mental health. Those are the things that are going to impact people recognizing that mental health is a real issue and that we need to address it. Because unfortunately, as much work as we will continue to do, the four of us, unless we become multimillionaires, people are going to be like, yeah, that's great that they're saying that, but it's just those four guys, right? Until you get that maybe Tyler Perry or somebody at that level that's talking about it, then it's not really going to resonate.
I mean,
right?
he may not be the best.
Kanye. But Kanye does talk about it, though, a little bit. But I want to hit on my second point. My second point was when you talked about community and social interactions, right? Like I said, I'm a flow coach, so we talk about the neuroscience, right? I tell people personality doesn't scale, biology scales, right? So that's one of our tenets. And when you look at biology and you look at evolution, from an evolutionary perspective, society, social interaction, and being with a group of like-minded people is what causes you to survive, enables you to survive. The lone guy is going to get, if you look at evolution, hunted down by the lion and killed, right? So you have, in a time of crisis, you can fight, freeze, or flee, right? Or what we say, you can drop into flow, which allows you to become collaborative, become creative, and become innovative. And you do that as a team, right? So over the course of history, evolution is what's shown that people that can collaborate and join a society to uplift one another, they persevere. And that's what we have to look at from the mental health perspective as well, is we need to use social interaction, community, communitas, really at the higher level, beyond community, from a societal level, and uplift one another. So I really liked, Jason, when you were talking about community and the importance, and the gang is really a great metaphor, because we look at the gang from a negative perspective, but if you take people really, right, you put them in low living conditions, right? The people that come together and uplift one another, yeah, we're looking at it from a negative perspective for the gang of maybe the activities they're doing, but they're helping each other survive.
Right, they're gonna hold it down.
Right, that group to persevere in the conditions. The only lone guy that I've seen survive like that was maybe what's the name from The Wire? He was the only dude that could
Omar.
He only got so far. So far.
Yeah.
Start snitching.
Omar who could do it alone,
Yeah. I read an article a couple of months ago, man. I forgot where I read it about mental health. I have kids and everything, and a son in the military, and mental health is a big thing for me. I was reading an article, and the article said that the people that have the strongest mental fortitude right now in America, and to be surprised, the article said this, it said Black women. And I was like, okay, it surprised me. The reason they said that in the article is because most Black women in the United States belong to a church. They're church going, they have that faith. So everything you talked about, that sense of community, the church provides that. That their moral compass, it provides that. Like-mindedness, it provides that. And because of that, they literally have the strongest mental fortitude of all people in America right now. And people say, well, the Black woman is being, being treated horribly. She's treated bad. Yes, that is true. But their mental fortitude is allowing them to hang on a little longer and allowing them to get through these things a little better than an average person. And that you nailed it with the community. That's what they have a lot, is that starts with that Black church that most Black American women are going to. It created that strong mental fortitude. So that may be the key to this, is that tribal, back to the tribal kind of mentality of protection and providing for the tribe. And I'm not saying it has to be the same skin color, or has to be the same gender or the same background, but people have to have a tribe. You know what I mean? I think that's going to be the key to getting us out of this recent funk that the world seems to be in, is to have more of that,
Yeah. And I think it really goes back to, it's a larger scale. When I was reading can't remember the name of the book, but it talks about hyper individualism. So that's what they talk about from the American really perspective on life, right? On achieving what we were saying earlier, the resume virtues, right? So to be great, people think I need to be an entrepreneur by myself, not help anybody, be really, it's a selfless pursuit, right? And so I say there's two types of people in the world, right? There's the type of person that sets out to build the tallest building and he goes out and does it. And then there's the type of person that sets out to build a medium building and knock everybody else's building down, right? So hyper individualism is that person that wants to build that huge building by himself, maybe knock a couple down too. He's kind of in the middle, but they're not looking for community. We have to sell, right? Sell is probably a bad word, but we have to instill this thought in people that we're doing it all for the community, uplift the entire community. It's not about the individual self to a degree, but overarching aspect of it, you've got to do it for everybody.
Yeah, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yep, that's it, man. That's it.
One thing that Reed brought up earlier about those that are on top, and Topaz, you actually spoke about it as well with your Tyler Perry reference. When you get to that level, the margin of error is so slim that one mistake can ruin you in some aspects. And I think it's fear that just keeps a lot of people in those positions from really coming out with their issues, with their mental issues. Topaz, you brought up the news being, a hindrance, right? In a certain sense. Like when Dak was talking about his depression, the news just beat him up for it. And it's like, how do we expect people to open up to the public, to be that spoken hero of sorts when you're getting bashed by the media? Like, this could ruin my career, this could ruin what I've built. It's unfortunate and scary.
No, I agree 100%. Colin Kaepernick would be a perfect example, right? Where he spoke out and we see where he is now. But he's doing great things. It's not in the spotlight, but he's still continuing to do great things.
Yes, such like you have to pick or choose.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You have to decide on, what you want to do, what you want. So this goes back to, right, your eulogy virtues, right? Do I want to be the most popular football player that ever lived? Or do I want to be the person who took a stand for what I thought was right and I continue to uplift the community? And it's a very difficult decision. And I don't think a kid in his 20s, or 25, 26, 24 is going to choose uplifting society. Yeah. Right. Their dream has always been to be whatever they're doing. They didn't grow up to be a philanthropist,
Right. I was talking to a teacher. I used to teach high school a little bit. We was talking about how we always ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do when you grow up? I want to be this, I want to have this, have this. He said, well, if we change that and ask kids, what impact do you want to make in the world? Maybe that'll frame their mind a little differently in what they decide to do later on. Maybe they won't just chase wealth and money, but maybe they'll chase wealth and money for the purpose of meeting the need for society. You know what I mean? Maybe we change that narrative. And right now we don't do that. You ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a doctor. Good. They make a lot of money. You know what I mean? But not getting a little deeper. Like, what impact do you want to make in the world? They said, well, I want to make sure nobody is ever hungry. All right, cool. You should think about doing these things to get you there to that point. You know what I mean? Different conversations.
And it continues when you're an adult because,
when
you're a man, they always ask, all right, so what do you do? Which means, what's your job? How much do you make? For women, they kind of slide it in as to, why aren't you married? Why aren't you have kids? And that's just more pressure. And even in the military, all right, how long you been in? They may look at your rank, all right, what's your rank? What's your job? And it's all like status driven, you know what I mean? And it's just more pressure that society puts on us.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the role of the parents, because a lot of people, when you look back, parents didn't have the decision, couldn't make the decision for themselves, right? So it's like, hey, maybe I wanted to be X, but I wasn't given that opportunity because back 20, 40, 50 years ago, you could only be this, And now in their mind, it's like, yeah, I got it. You want to be a, I don't know, a writer, but you got to go out and get a job and work 9 to 5, you know, because that's what they were told, right? So it goes back to having this growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And the parents have to have the growth mindset to understand what that you have to find their particular, I call it a circle of genius, right? And then let you explore that circle of genius. We go back to curiosity, right? Everything starts with curiosity. Curiosity, passion, purpose, autonomy, mastery. That's the flow kind of passion kind of recipe that we walk through. And if you're ever struggling with, you know, deciding what you want to do or feeling if you're in the right place, we tell people go back to curiosity. Play with anything that you're interested in and figure out, you know, how you feel about those things. So if I work 9 to 5, or military is a great example for me, you know, as I'm retiring and I'm like, I know I don't want to stay in this career field. Okay, well, what am I curious about? Let me go play with these 5 things for a little bit and then kind of dial that back and say, okay, I'm really interested in this one. Now let me research and investigate this and see how much I really like it. Get into groups with similar people, talk about the career field, talk about what they like about it, what they don't like. And then I figure out something in society. We call this a massively transformative purpose, where my interest, where my passion intersects with I'll use the word crisis, but something in society that can be used for the greater good, that you can impact the greater good. Where those two things intersect, that's where you develop your career field. So for me, it became mental health and helping transition service members pursue their passion, live Second Mountain principles. So we've got to help kids explore their circle of genius.
I like that.
I want to go back to COVID. A lot of people are saying that, you know, even when the country or the world opens back up, telework is still going to be a big thing. And that's just so unfortunate. I think, you know, with even with school, my youngest daughter's 5 and she's in kindergarten, and her introduction to school is talking to her teacher on a laptop at 5 years old. And, you know, we got to the point at the beginning, it was like, you know, sit down, focus. Why you spend? But now we're just like, this is at 5 years old. I can't imagine this being considered school, right? So, you know, we let her do her own thing, basically. Like, she spins in the chair. She basically does her own arts and crafts while the school's going on, because that's like almost the foundation of society when it comes to kindergarten. You're just learning how to play with other kids that aren't related to you. You're learning how to take instruction from a superior. You're learning how to follow directions. And just to have that on a laptop is kind of like, what's the point? Another thing is, I'm originally from Chicago, and you know, so I follow kind of the politics and what's going on there, the current events. And the mayor, this was when it first kicked off, right? The mayor was walking around like the south side of Chicago. She had 2 police officers with her, and it was these kids in the park, right? Like in the basketball courts outside, and it was like 3 or 4 of them. They were just hanging out, and they didn't have any mask on or anything. She came with her mask and her 2 big cops and was like, hey, go back home. You know, break this up, social distance, you go get your grandma sick. And I just thought that was just so condescending. She didn't know these kids' background. She didn't know if, you know, they lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with 8 people. You know what I mean? That she didn't know what they were going through. And these kids were like 15 or 16. And I just think it's so condescending when you have these 50, 60, 40 plus year old people who lived all of this life. They've never done anything similar to, you know, this lockdown, this COVID. And now we're kind of pointing our finger at teenagers and 20-year-olds who are like in the midst of, you know, exploring and finding themselves and want to hang out. And we're saying, no, be responsible, stay home, don't do anything. You know, I thought about this. I have a 4-year-old son. Basically, 25% of his life has been this. You know, I have a 5-year-old daughter, you know, 20% of her life has been this. I have a 10-year-old, 10% of her life has been this. And I don't think people think about that. And they will never get these years back. And they're stuck in the house. If you're 20 years old, 5% of your life has been this, right? And we really need to kind of look at things differently when it comes to stay at home, be safe, be responsible. You know what I mean? Partying and hanging out is not that important. We need to get through this. And I think it kind of is. There's a balance.
That's pretty damn interesting, Reese. Like, I never really thought about it in that aspect. I have at times looked at my little girl, she's 2, and I'm like, man, she's starting to get into the phase of, like, remembering certain things. And she looks around, she sees people with masks. Like, that's what she knows. And at my job, I work with a bunch of, I got 20-year-olds that I supervise, and they want to go out and party. So you bring that up, Reese, it has to be a balance, because it helps with their mental stability, right? Going out, being with their friends, they're having that social interaction. You want that at 20 years old, right?
You need it at 20 years
old. You need it. And now we have this whole pandemic going on, lockdowns going on, and we wonder why people are depressed, not wanting to really, like, we're still going to the office. These kids don't want to go there. Like, and if they do, it's because they actually get to be around people. Like, it's crazy. Like you said, it's very contradicting. A lot of the rules. I get it. It's for the safety of others, right? Especially our elderly. But I don't think we definitely didn't think it through. It hasn't really been thought through. And the second and third order effects of this can be lasting. I mean, we had a guy commit suicide over, what was it, Thanksgiving? 21 years old, committed suicide. So it's definitely taking its toll on people. It's just not the virus killing folks. It's mental instability and rules that are breaking people down. That's a very good point, man.
Sure. The impacts of social distancing, social isolation will be much longer lasting than the virus itself, right? And you can give a vaccine to, lower your chances of getting COVID, but there's nothing that you can give to people that are dealing with the mental health challenges of being isolated for a year plus, right? To the education piece, one thing that I've seen from this is, the school system should probably relook at our method of instruction. The one biggest thing that I've learned is the Montessori method is, this gives a stronger case to the Montessori method, allowing kids to play, allowing kids to be creative, not necessarily teaching, hey, this is, we like to say it's, you go to school to here's what to learn, but not learning how to learn.
Yes.
Where Montessori flips that. Montessori, they teach you how to learn, right? I'm not a Montessori kid, but I've been researching it as well. And I'm actually a fan of the asynchronous learning day. So my this is her first year in middle school. So even though she's older, she's dealing with the same experience that you said, Reese, where the only thing she knows of middle school is all online. And we all know what middle school is like, the importance of interaction at that age. But she only knows it online, right? But I like the asynchronous day. The issue is not everyone has a parent that can be there on that day to help do creative activities or working within what I said, your circle of genius, or exploring their curiosities. That's just not reality, So it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be an interesting challenge when they go back to in-person school. So my daughter is very introverted, my youngest, and her challenge is being on camera. She doesn't want to be on camera, right? But the teachers are like, hey, I need to see that you're in class. I need you to key the mic and speak up. But that's not her personality. So there's a lot of kids now that are feeling this pressure, this stress just to be in class, because they have to be on camera. They have to, where you can sit in the classroom and you get kind of built up by the other people to your left and right. The dialogue, the engagement, the emotions that you can see, it helps you. And that stuff is not there virtually. So it's very impactful.
Yeah, that's social interaction. Absolutely. It's like you said, like it's gonna be interesting, 10, 20 years from now, where professors and basically like bosses are saying, this new generation. What generation are we in now? That are
What? Is it why?
Anyway, that generation are going to have so many like gaps and challenges. Yeah. Just the way they interact with each other and what we're asking them to do, because you know technology can't do everything. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's limited. And as far as people, like, what are the purpose of people? It should be other people and you know, family and community. And yeah, this is over the last 12 months that's been stripped. And it made sense maybe the first, you know, the 2 months of this.
I mean, you think
going
about
into
like
a year,
Topaz and
oh my
like
goodness.
your daughter being in middle school. You think about going back to middle school, right? Let's take a trip, you know, back in memory lane where, you know, you go to middle school, you know, you got your school lunches and your assemblies and you know, like I got friends that I still talk to from middle school. It's like, how do you build that human connection? I can't make friends online. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. And the first time you like look across, like that girl's cute. How do I talk? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do I present myself? What looks good?
How are you doing that?
How do I make jokes? You know,
how are you passing a note in the virtual classroom? Like, I don't know about where you guys went to school, but for me, for high school, we had probably 5 or 6 elementary schools that funneled into the middle school, right? So here where I live at, they don't. They have maybe 2 or 3 schools that funnel into the middle school. But still, these are kids you're never going to interact with. You haven't interacted with your first 5 years of elementary school. And now you're all coming together in one place. And you're meeting all these new people, right? Now you're on the screen where you're like, I don't know that person. I'm not even going to try to talk to them because you're in this type of environment. So
yeah,
very, very difficult situation.
Yeah, self-confidence, self-esteem, you know, even the first year of high school, I went to an all-boys school and it was terrible, right? Literally the two main pastimes were fighting and roasting each other, right? So you get to the point where you have to be sharp, you gotta have thick skin, and then thankfully, my mom couldn't afford it. So sophomore year, I went to like a public school, right? And just during that year, just what I've learned with just self-confidence, self-esteem, just learning jokes, being quick on my feet. Yeah, that's like invaluable. Like I still have that today, and I would have never had that if I would have, you know, my freshman year I would have done online. It's just
like they're missing they're missing the building blocks of whatever their character is going to be when they get older. You know what I mean? Like those intangibles, like you said, like your wittiness, your quickness. Like you can't learn that not being around people. You have to be around folks. You gotta
need social cues. You gotta have those.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Yeah, very interesting topic. So we definitely have to have you on again. But we're about to wrap it up. And what we like to do is we like to give the people, our audience, something tangible to leave with. So, you know, we had a pretty deep discussion on mental health. And we just want, we're just going to go around and we want to start with you on any advice you want to give the people as to if they're going through something now, or if they've, you know, have a family member or friend close to them, how can they help them? Or anything you want to give advice on.
Yeah. So I'm actually, my coaching business is, we call it escape velocity. So escape velocity, I say escape velocity is fueled within. And when I say within, it's inspiration, both inspiring yourself and others, and breath work. So you can take advantage of the gap between stimulus and response. So it's inspiration, intellect, so being a lifelong learner, interpersonal relationships, which we've talked about in depth, intrinsic motivation, being motivated by things greater than self being society and things like that, and investing in yourself so you can invest in others as well. With that being said, it's not about the present moment. It's all about trajectory, right? So as long as you put yourself on an upward trajectory, take small incremental steps like compound interest, step by step, you'll get to that goal. So just remain positive. It's not about the present moment. It's all about trajectory.
I think I'll talk about what we brought up earlier is don't allow fear to take over what you could possibly do for others. You know, being that voice, being that outspoken person, you know, speaking on whatever issues that you have going on. I'm pretty sure there's someone else going through it as well. You know what I mean? And they can definitely use that voice. Just don't be scared to talk about it. I mean, everyone goes through issues. We all have stressors. We've all been depressed, like some more severe than others. Talk about it and just be open and you know, get the help. And I'm pretty sure you'll be able to help others.
The last thing I have is the same thing I mentioned earlier, is that everybody goes through these things. Like Hakeem said, you're going through those bouts of depression, sadness, or anxiety, that kind of stuff. There is, find your community, find your tribe, those people that are going to lift you up, not just make you feel good, but those that are going to make you progress and help you out of that funk that you're in, and seek that help. A lot of times it's easy to, you get a cut on your arm, see a doctor, whatever, because you can see the visual injury, you can see the problem. Mental health is a little different. You really can't see that. Now, there's symptom things that can manifest themselves, but they're harder to see. And so you got to have that courage enough to go get help. And I don't mean like, you know, I'm gonna call a mental health provider, but seek community out that can help you out of that. You know what I mean? It's okay. There are people going through it. Everybody might not say it, but just seek out that community, that tribe that you can trust and you can then get involved with, whether it's a church, a social group, whatever that is. But find that there's strength in numbers with those that have your mental health and your emotions, and that they care about you. Make sure you find that tribe.
Yep. And lastly, when I was going through my depression, one of the best advice I got was from my first supervisor in the military, Joyce Satterfield. She said, keep doing what you always loved, right? So she asked me, you know, was I working out? And she straight up asked me, was I doing jujitsu? And I said, no. She said, you got to do that. You know what I mean? Basically take that joy away from you. And basically I was forcing myself during lunch. There was a lunch training spot. My supervisor let me go, and every day I went, I just felt so much better. And I think that was starting the path to kind of like recovery. And so that old adage, like jujitsu saves lives, is it's spot on. I'm a living testament of it. So keep doing the things you like to do, you know, no matter what happened, and don't beat yourself up. So, but Topaz, man, we really appreciate you. Definitely gonna have to have you on again. And we'll definitely post and advertise your page and your site, and just so people can get in contact you and follow your story. So
no, thank you. I really appreciate you guys having me on. It was really great to meet you guys, Jason, Hakeem, who we just met today. Reese, man, we got to get you back on the mats too, like you just said, man, because
choke him out.
We know how good it is, for us. So I really appreciate it. On Instagram, Workplay Obsession, Facebook, Workplay Obsession, All In Foundation, and then also workplayobsession.com is my website. Coaching is Escape Velocity 11.186. That's on Instagram. So I'm all over the place. So thank you guys. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, and that's our show for today. We appreciate you. Make sure you like and subscribe. We out.